So welcome everyone to this next SCBA podcast interview with Ruth Rice. Ruth, it's great to be with you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to be with you too.
We are really looking forward to you being part of our Leaders Day on the 20th of May. So this is really an opportunity to meet you, get to know you a little bit, give us a bit of a taster of what's coming up and what's been going on in your life. So what I thought I would do is just ask you a couple of questions if I can, just to get to know you a little bit, so that we get to know the Ruth behind the speaker, as it was, as it is.
That might have a counterintuitive effect on how you get your numbers going to your thing on the 20th of May, though, maybe. We'll see whether it actually helps you or not.
I'm happy to take the risk.
Inspire, connect,
resource, growing healthy churches
is in relationship for God's mission.
Ruth, if I asked you for 3 words that described you as a person, which 3 would you choose?
Pick another question. Which 3 words would I choose? I would choose chatty, compassionate, and what would the other one be? No idea. I find because I love words. I really love words. I think words are really important. To limit myself to just 3 and make them the 3, I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody. Ask my husband. He'd have another 3.
What would your husband say? Do you know?
Oh no. He'd take about 2 years to think of them as well, because he really also likes words and he's more thoughtful than me. So I could give you 50 words.
Well, I think you probably have just then, haven't you? In some ways.
3's a bit difficult.
3's impossible. We can't do 3.
I've just finished actually the manuscript of a book, The A to Z of Wellbeing, because I love words so much. I've just sent that to the publishers. That will come out in 22, because I think the words we use are really important. So it's not that I don't know myself well and I don't know words that would describe me. It's that I feel like a word is a whole world behind it, and different people will hear that in different ways.
Yeah.
So when I say chatty, people will be like, "Oh."
He talks a lot. If you've got a bit of spare time, what would be your go-to pastime?
You see, weirdly, I love sea swimming, wild swimming, but I live in Nottingham. I'm from the Isle of Man originally, and I always love to swim. Wild swimming is just a thing, and I'm so landlocked, and lockdown's been really hard for that because I can't get to the sea. I'm a bit of my son calls me a crochetaholic, so I love to crochet, weirdly, just anything. I like painting stones. I've got into gardening a bit, actually. Didn't ever do gardening before lockdown. Quite like that, so reading a book, watching a bit of Netflix. Yeah, I'm quite lazy really, but hobbies have been really important to my well-being. So yeah, I've made sure I've had plenty on the go.
You mentioned lockdown, and I mean, have you found lockdown difficult, or are you one of these people that's embraced it and loved it?
I love people, real people. So even though these screens have been a godsend, haven't they? I mean, we've been able to stay connected. I mean, like I say, I'm from the Isle of Man, so that's been, the borders have been shut for the whole of the time my folks are there. I've not seen my elderly parents for a year and a half nearly. You know, it's not to be able to see my own family, to have them nearby. My daughter's in London, son's in Liverpool, one son lives with us. But it takes the breath out of me not to be able to hug my family and be with them. So no, I have not loved that. I've not met many people who are just loving it, if they're being really honest, because we need each other. So I miss all of that stuff. But yeah, okay, I've got a lovely home and a garden. I'm very grateful for that. I'm not locked down on my own. I'm with my husband and my son. So I've got a little dog. So there's lots to be grateful for. But I don't think, I often say this to people, I don't think God plays trauma top trumps, you know. I don't think he wants to go, well, you know, you've got it all right, so you should be more grateful. But that person's having it really bad. I think for me, part of my journey has been allowing myself to feel my own pain as well as my own happiness, because I was this relentlessly positive person who then had a breakdown. So saying, oh, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with not being able to visit churches and talk with people in person, with having no feedback really because it's all on a screen. I'm not okay with the fact that all of our centres, our Renew spaces, had to shut overnight and people didn't have anywhere to go. I'm not okay with any of that. However, this has been the most fruitful year as a charity we've ever had, because I've had to learn how to work with other people, how to put things online, how to let people have what I was holding too close to me, So it's been a very interesting year, to put it that way.
It has been an interesting year, and for many of us, we've discovered that we have vulnerability mentally as well because COVID, because life worked for us. We were amongst people. It fulfilled us to a large extent. Suddenly, when we were kind of limited and locked down, we suddenly realised that there were elements of mental health that were challenging for us. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, but you see, I'd had a practice run with that year that I was unwell.
Yeah.
I spent it largely isolated and unable to speak and in my bed. So, in a way, I was talking to quite a few people who have long-term mental health issues. To start with, this was thank goodness, other people now understand what is our normality. So, for many people, so for me included, the idea of being isolated and locked down within yourself, that has already been a reality for me in my life. So learning how to be on my own with myself, how to have some hobbies that do me good, how to have prayer rhythms that feed my life, I learned that the hard way 10 years ago. But I think there's been a new degree of a level for me of how exhausting not having contact with real people is, how exhausting screens are, how where your energy has come from things and people that I hadn't spotted it before really. And a psychologist was saying that there are symptoms of burnout in people just from sameness. So not the overwork. So I've had a burnout from overwork, but I'm getting the same sort of physical, mental symptoms from just everything being the same all the time. And some people are better at that than me. My husband's better at that than me. He's quite a steady chap. I love change. I like visiting places. I like new things. I'm a bit, a junkie for people. And it's just the world got smaller and greyer, and I'm not okay with that. No, and I think I have understood in myself a bit more of I know that I say that God is enough for us, and it's true, he is enough for us, but he also gives us all these other amazing opportunities that give flavour and colour to life, and to shrink all that down into one place for me has felt life limiting.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with that and identify with it completely. I mean, it's interesting that you talk about your own personal journey of 10 years ago. That was such a significant year, it seems to me, because God has led you beyond that and into, helping people with mental health, understanding yourself, but also then going on. To tell me a little bit about how that journey's happened and how you founded Renew Wellbeing, because I assume that's part of the fruit of that difficult season.
Yeah, because before that I was like a hot and happening primary school teacher, full-time, 3 kids, husband, leading in the church. We were really, I was living it large. I didn't understand how to look after myself very well. I don't think I knew how to pace myself. Or I think I'd forgotten I was a human being. And then this crash happened. And for some people, they can pinpoint why their mental health has sort of taken a nosedive. For me, it was sort of gradual burnout that then led to complete and utter breakdown, and I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't speak, and it was a very low year. And it wasn't how deeply, wonderfully profound. I had all this time with the Lord. No, it was dark and empty, and I couldn't go to church. I couldn't cope with it. And that was the shocking thing for me, was I found the things that had once given me life were actually just too scary to be part of. And that's sort of led me into this, hang on a minute, if people, a quarter of the population at some point in their life are experiencing what I experienced there, then, and we think as churches we're these wonderfully welcoming places to be, what happened during that year where my lovely church I've been part of for 30 years, I just couldn't bear to be with people. how could we make it easier to keep the connection strong with people who are struggling with their mental health, to make our sense of community available to people who are feeling anxious and isolated. So, yeah, the year itself was horrible and I wouldn't want to repeat it, but the learning that went on during it was profound. And I feel like I was born again during that year, which I'll talk about a bit more on May the 20th, but it's an understanding of the gospel and of the gospel of well-being that came to me. So I learned the hard way how to look after myself better with hobbies and prayer rhythms and stuff. And then that became fascinating to me, that this was how to live well within my own skin. Therefore, as community, could we embrace some of these rhythms together? Because I couldn't do it on my own. None of us can. I needed my church family. So the church, bless them, appointed me full-time to lead them coming out of that breakdown. I know. They are remarkable. New Life Baptist Church, West Bridgeford. Take my hat off to them, because I was doing, leading in the church and teaching full time, and I couldn't have done both. And they chose to, make it possible for me to take one of those choices, knowing that I could break. And so they treated me well and looked after me well, but also we went on an adventure to see what would it look like to make a space where we could practice our rhythms of prayer and life together, but in a way that our community could join in with us. So how could I live well within my own skin, but do it in a way that was open to anyone? And so that was Renew 37. September 2015, we opened this little space on a high street, which I'll talk about more on May the 20th. But it was a space where it was okay not to be okay, where anyone could come, bring a hobby, share a hobby, join the rhythms of prayer if they wanted to, but any faith and none, no proselytising in the cafe area, where we partnered with the mental health team to just have a safe place, really, where they could sort of send people to, and where we could practice being church in a new way. And that sort of took off, and it became obvious.
2015 was the first.
September 2015 was the first one, called Renew 37. And that was it was 37 Abbey Road, so it wasn't magical. I just thought, God's renewing our minds, he's renewing our strength. We'll call it Renew 37. And then we looked at Psalm 37, which is do not fret, do not fret, do not fret, delight yourself in the Lord. And this is a good game. And then other churches started saying, how are you doing this, Ruth? Because they'd seen me when I wasn't well, local leaders,
Yeah.
They'd lived it with me, and then they saw the life this place was bringing, not just to the community and the church, but me as a leader, So they were saying, can you show us how to do this? So there were one or two other churches. Then I began to help them set up something similar. So we were open 4 days a week, still are. That was a bit full on, I realise now. So there was another little one in Ruddington, which is a village near us, where he said, look, I just want to do 2 hours a week in this existing cafe that said we can use their space. All right, I'll help you do that. And then there was another church in Hucknall in North Nottingham that said, we want to use our church building. I thought, I don't know, you can use your church building. I thought God was getting us out of the buildings. So God had to keep teaching me, this is about the principles, be present, be prayerful, be in partnership. But it became obvious I couldn't lead the church full time and do all this other stuff and still be well. So I wasn't looking after myself again. It'd be a shame to set up a wellbeing charity and give yourself a breakdown doing it.
Yeah, that wouldn't work, would it?
I know, right? So I took some funding from Cinnamon Network and left church-based leadership. I'll talk about that some more, because that sounds like it was easy. It wasn't easy at all. There was a little bit of funding, no security in it. And we set up Renew Wellbeing as a charity in September 2017, so sort of 2 years after the first centre. And by lockdown 2020, first one, March 2020, we had 50 centres nationally. So it grew quite quickly, with churches just joining in the language and the rhythms of prayer and showing up. And it was still just me and my friend as an administrator, really. It was still a little charity. And then lockdown, of course, meant all the centres had to shut, and it was devastating. But then weirdly, chucked all the training online, and now we're working with over 200 churches, and I have a team of 7, and that all happened during lockdown. I know. So when I say this has been an interesting year, I mean really interesting.
So as you look forward, to the year that's ahead and 2022, what are your expectations? I mean, I just sense a lot of churches are going to be focusing on mental health, partly because we know that it has impacted us, but also lots of people in the community. They need the church's care and love in this area. Are you expecting a bit of a wave?
I've always expected this to be a wave of well-being to combat a tsunami of mental ill health, but never more so than now, because the church didn't know it wasn't okay before. And the beauty of a Renew space is you don't have to have something ready to offer. Like, oh, this is the gospel of well-being and we all know it and we're living it. We're just coming with vulnerability as humans to sit together, to learn about well-being, to pray, to invite our community to help us, to join us, to learn with us. And so anyone can do it. And you only need 2 people 2 hours a week to start one. So it's little churches, big churches. And there are 50,200 churches in the UK, and my dream would be that at least 10% of those in the next few years go, we could do a space like this, we could do this, because this isn't about big numbers. This is about, the ones and the twos. When Jesus went, I've just been reading John 4, the woman at the well. When Jesus went through Samaria, it was for one person, but that one person meant lots of people. So I think there's something about this encounter that we can have with God because of our vulnerability and our mental and emotional health issues. And we've all got mental health, right? We talk about mental health as if it's a thing over there, but now we know we've all got it. Whether it's good or bad depends on our habits of well-being. So for me, the language of the gospel is the language of well-being. And when we begin to live it as communities, that's the best gift we can give the places where we are being church. And I can't see why any church wouldn't want to prioritise prayer and the needs of the most isolated. I just don't understand why anyone wouldn't want one of these. So, I am increasingly aware that God's put this amazing little gift in our hands. I think in March 2020, we thought we were growing a little charity and it was growing quite quickly. I think now we realise God had given us 50 chances to practice something. That was just a trial run. This is where we go, we've done this, it works, we know this works. This is simple, it's safe, it's sustainable, and it is good for the mental and emotional health of the church as well as the community. So, I'm fully out there.
It sounds like you've been full on, and in the meantime, you've written a book and had that published. Was it Stop, Pray and... Oh, sorry, Slow Down, Show Up
Was it
and
just
Pray?
Stop Praying and Show Up?
You said shut up. No, that's not the one.
Stop praying and shut up.
Slow down, show up and pray.
Book. Slow down,
now,
show
I
up
understand,
and pray.
I stand slow down. I understand pray. Just give me a sentence or two. Why show up? What's behind that? I haven't read the book, so I should have read it.
So one of our really big principles is about being present. So for me, I was so busy running around trying to fix everybody else in the world that I wasn't showing up in my own life. I wasn't slowing down and showing up and going, I am here in this moment and God is in this moment and you are in this moment. So that, they might call it mindfulness, but for me, that is the whole business of being God's child in this moment, in this place. And that has really helped me through this pandemic, to be honest, because some of the habits I've got are things like holding a cup first thing in the morning. There you go, cup moment. Hold your cuppa first thing in the morning, sit still. And that reminds me of the time when I couldn't do anything else but be still. And the world still spins on its axis and I am held. So that's my view of what well-being is, a cup held in God's hands. That's mostly, I'll talk a lot about that on the 20th. This whole idea that well-being is being held in God's hands. So to show up in that, the story of well-being already exists. We get to be in it. I coined this phrase, this word dwell-being. So we're dwelling in him, he's dwelling in us. But if we're so busy rushing around trying to make everything happen for everybody else, or even for ourselves, or panicking, and the busyness can be here. So the slowing down and the showing up can be in your head, in your thinking, not just in your doing. Showing up, being present, being truly present is at the very heart of this movement.
Ruth, that is fantastic, and thank you so much for sharing. I think you've given us more than a taster to turn up on the 20th.
Yeah, show up.
Show
Don't
up,
listen.
be
Don't listen
part of
to
it.
Joth with his "Shut Up, Stop Praying" book. That's not a book. This is slow down, show up, and pray. So if we can spend some time together on the 20th, really looking at what do we mean by well-being? What would it look like to be a community of well-being? What is the gospel of well-being? How can you set up a space where well-being is a priority? And how does that flow out of your own habits and life? And particularly, what's prayer got to do with it? How can prayer be also mission? So that's what's going to happen on the 20th, something like that.
Well, we're really looking forward to it, and we're really grateful that you're going to be joining us. So God bless you. We'll be praying for you, and I'm sure it's going to be a great day.
Thanks, Joth.
Inspire, connect
Resource. Growing healthy churches.
is in relationship for God's mission.